Okay, in this video I'm going to look through some logos that I grabbed for you guys and maybe make a few comments. I don't think any of these are logos that people just made, and uploaded either for sale or for a contest or something. You do see a lot of that when you do logo searches. I wanted to get logos that were really for real companies, and it's overwhelming. I mean, there's about a billion logos, and so, my thought process was that I would try to keep the style uh, very, very, very simple, clean, and very professional with a minimal amount of illustration, realistic illustration. And I think for a first logo, for a beginner, or for beginning design students doing one of your first logos probably, this is really extremely important. The biggest problem I have with this, with having my students create logos, is they want to make it too complex. And it's not just you, everybody does. And I have that problem as well. You want to do too much. Very often a logo is just text. It's a text logo and probably manipulated with Illustrator and or Photoshop somewhat. You can do tricks to manipulate a font, the text that's already a font. But I mean, something like this, Antonine, it just looks like a font. It was probably tweaked a little, like the O, how the O continues as if it's going to cross the T like that, and how that separates. I mean, that could have been tweaked. I really don't know. And those are really simple tricks you can do with Photoshop. But for most of these, the key is a really cool font. All right, and that's going to be the key for you guys as well, I think. A lot of really cool fonts are very expensive, but not always. You can find some free fonts. I've already shown you how to do some searches on dafont.com, for example, and there's many others. Um, so keep it simple, keep it simple. Just the fewest hints of an image is all you need, okay? And most of these, I believe, I didn't want to limit to like corporate 500. I mean, because my personal interests are way beyond that. There's all kinds of stuff, but a lot of these are corporate 500 because they've got a budget to really hire the best possible designers, who really know what they're doing, and also they want a very clean and professional look themselves. And I think if you're a beginning designer and you're struggling through the process, I mean, at the very least you can do that. Keep it simple and professional, and that'll go a long way. Some of these look like European logos to me, or foreign logos. Uh, Different regions of the world have different styles. American or United States logos, even if it's a global company, generally speaking, they tend to be a little bit boring. Not always, but there's a certain look. But when you get into European logos, and I'll show you some other ones too, from I believe India or something like that. There's a certain kind of style. I mean, I'll just show you instead of trying to talk about it here. So let's just move forward. Antonine is a cosmetics company. The curves like that. I mean, every letter almost looks like a cosmetics case. That you would open up with a mirror. Some kind of makeup. And I think that was probably intentional. That's really cool. And it's almost like they're locking into place, just like a mirror, or a shadow, eyeliner, or not an eyeliner, like a blush, or and I'm not an expert, but those little cases that open and lock together, little round, like oyster-like cases. It almost looks like that's what they're trying to mimic here with the text choice, the font choice, and what they've done to it. So very, very simple. The letters are kerned perfectly. The balance of the amount of space visually, not exactly, but visually between each letter is perfect. Aquasana. They do water filters, water systems, things like that. And Another note: some logos will have taglines, some not taglines, some, and usually there's both depending on what the usage is. And for a lot of these logos, and for most logos, there's going to be slightly different styles, not just revisions, like old versus new, but different versions of the same logo. One rule of thumb is, if you're using a logo to go over um, something that's going to clash with the colors, you make it all black or all white. And a good logo designer will design in black and white anyways to begin with, and then add color later. They should really work in just all black, okay, and a combination of black and white. Contrast is very key, and they should work well very, very, very small. I mean, when I say small, I mean like a quarter of an inch small. So when you're doing logos, print them extremely small, and if they don't read very well, that could be a problem. Um, this logo, for example, I think there's a version where it's stacked, more vertical, and this one's a horizontal version. A good idea when you're researching logos or trying to find a logo for a company, check the website first. That doesn't mean that that's the only version of their logo, but it gives you a good idea what their updated logo is. Because very often you're going to do searches on the internet and you're going to find old versions or versions that just people make. You never know what you're going to get. People just recreate logos, sometimes exactly perfect, which is cool because they do a version which is maybe vector that you need, but other times they do it and it's not that great, or it's just a lot different. So you got to be careful. So just go to the website and then you can source what the logo is. It's supposed to look like, the colors, and what the most recent version is. I mean, the company's websites will probably have the most recent version. Another thing you can do is do a search in Google. You can type in the company name, so Aquasana /PDF, and then hit click, or then just enter, and then you can find PDFs that might have their logo as well. Atlantic Records, an old record company. This is just a company that has had the most classic artists signed to them. I believe Led Zeppelin, for example. They've got this 60s color scheme in their colored version of their logo, and a kind of a kinetic, playful, and almost candy-like twirling symbol, which obviously is meant to be a record symbol. I'm assuming that's like a 45 or record that would spin around with a needle. And so it's a nod to old school. They're saying, we're classic. We had Led Zeppelin. We're cool. Square logos can be difficult sometimes if you're arranging them in rows. Very often where I work, we have to make several columns and several rows of logos that have to be visually each the same size. The visual weight has to look the same. It doesn't mean they have to be exactly the same size technically. And what happens is you find a lot of horizontal logos, and and our standard is to alphabetize them. It's sort of just a basic standard unless instructed otherwise. So you don't. And the reason you do that, and the reason you keep them all the same visual weight, is unless there's a reason to make one logo bigger than another logo, and at times there is. Perhaps if you're giving donors at the back of a brochure for an art museum, for example, credit with logos. If one donor submitted twice as much as another, very often you'll make that logo twice as big. It's using contrast to emphasize it's a bigger donor. Okay, so size does matter when it comes to logo arrangement with each other. But if there's no other reason to do a contrast, if it's just you're just laying out like a list of logos, they have to be exactly the same visual size, visual weight, and you go in alpha order, because then there's no question about why is this one first, why is this one last. You know what I mean? It's just the luck of the name. Autodesk, engineering software, something like that. I'm not sure if I would have got that from the ribbon-like graphic in there. I guess I would have guessed something to do with computers. But again, it's kerned perfectly. All caps. And this is a style you'll see very often. Centered to each other, a small little graphic to the left of very bold, cool text with a cool font, close to each other, centered. That's a pretty common look. And then, the brand for this company will have the gray of the Autodesk text color, and then, probably two or three other colors. A couple of blues and maybe a couple of greens. And you could repeat those colors as you're doing layouts. That's the other thing. I have to make custom covers often, and sometimes we're not really given a lot. We get the website and some ideas, but we have to come up with custom colors as well. And so the first thing you do is you go to the website and you look at the logo first, and if there's obvious colors in the logo, you write it. You figure out the build normally by bringing it into Photoshop, and then with the you can use a couple different tools. You figure out the build, and then you just figure out like a ranking. And when you're doing books with charts, as the different bars have to be different colors, it'll go down 1, 2, 3, 4, the order of the color scheme. Okay. So in this case, maybe I'd pick like a dark blue for the first color, like a dark gray for the second. Maybe like a darker green for the third, etc. And you want to think about when it comes to like having color choices be involved in tables and charts and other design elements, like I do. You want to think about the brightness and darkness of the colors as well. Very dark is usually okay, but if it's too light, that can be a problem, especially if your standard is to use white text over colored boxes. We have header boxes shapes, which that's the standard. So if the color is too light, the white doesn't read very well. Or if you've got 3 bars in a chart that are all dark, 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 and then the last bar is like super light, it just looks funny. There's no reason to emphasize it that way. So you have to be kind of consistent with your value and think about, and just think things through, like how it's going to look after content's put in. Avaya Communication Solutions, whatever that means. I would have had no idea what their company was about, so I guess they did a bad job communicating. It's a cool logo, though. It's a text logo, obviously. And I'm not sure if this is the font or if they tweaked it. They might have, cut out, between the A's, how there's that space there. They probably cut that out. Because other than that, it's a fairly simple looking font. Kerned absolutely perfectly. 3 A's. And it's almost like 2 V's. They're just so close in the shape. Very symmetrical. But again, here's the example of simple, 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 simple. It's okay to do just a text logo. No problem at all. Instantly recognizable. Berkeley. Well, I forgot to look up what they do. It's fish products. I forgot exactly what though. But I love this logo. They probably used Illustrator, some program like that, to take the Y and stretch it around like that as if it's like a fishing line that's catching the fish. So it was a really good idea. Sometimes just one really good idea can pull a logo off. And they integrated the graphic element, the fish, perfectly with the text and the circle around the text, so it's all one graphic. It's the illusion that the fish is jumping out of water, and the water is the circle of red, and then the Berkeley could be just like a reflection in the water. And it's cool how they warped the text, they skewed it or on a perspective to make it look like it's on a plane, which is tilted just like the oval. You see that? So that's a very clever thing too. It just gives it helps with the illusion that the fish is popping out of the water. So that's complex in a way. It's a very rich and complex illustration in terms of you have a fish jumping out of water because the Y in the Berkeley text is catching it. But the way they did it is extremely simple. It looks easy, but it's not. Logo design is extremely hard. Nailing the simplicity is extremely hard, and sometimes you nail simplicity, but then it's just boring, and when you find logos that people just kind of upload, that's usually what you find, in my opinion anyways. It's simple, but it's just dull, you know. But not this one. I love this logo. One color, very simple. So you can see how this would work black and white. One of my favorite logos ever, sports logo for for the Milwaukee Brewers, their old logo. It's funny too because people still love this logo, and like most people, when you go to a game, even though they have a new logo now for years, still have shirts, with this logo on. Or maybe that was just a marketing ploy by the team, to change the branding, but then keep selling the old branding. I'd like to think it was because of demand, but I don't like the new logo at all. This is just the best idea. A lot of you probably know it's a glove overall, and a ball, but it's also an M and a B, Milwaukee Brewers. And in between the M and the B, where the lacing would be, it's a bat. So again, I mean, overall it's complex. You got a bat, a ball, an M, a B, and it's a glove shape. But it's done so simply that it's completely unified and integral. Two colors, very, very basic. They chose the gold color, obviously that's reminiscent of beer. And the blue, I'm assuming maybe initially that was chosen because of Milwaukee's location on Lake Michigan, which is a huge body of water. Love this logo. Broadcom. So I don't think I looked up Broadcom, but obviously they must be some kind of telecom company. Again, super simple text, all caps, a little italic on it, kerned perfectly. And what a nice idea. They kept it very symmetrical. And this is a little more vertical than some of the others, but it's still or a little more vertical, but it's still overall horizontal shape. Two colors, black and red. When you're saying one, two, three colors, when you use that term to talk about a logo, black, you can consider black a color. Okay, white is not a color. White typically is just the paper, and sometimes you can have colored paper, but just black is considered a color. Super, super simple. It was just a really good idea. Less is more. Boston Bruins logo. I always love this logo. Hockey team. Very symmetrical, very simple. So they're repeating the puck shape. Obviously the outline, which is black, that's reminiscent of a puck, a hockey puck. And the yellow shapes, the concentric segments or whatever. I'm not sure what that is supposed to represent. It could represent something, the stadium perhaps, or a stadium. But it's just a B. Super simple. It's a puck and it's a big B. Instantly recognizable. Like, I don't even follow sports very much, and I don't follow hockey hardly at all. But I knew this one immediately. Boston Bruins. Boom. Very cool logo. Two colors. Canadian Natural. I didn't look this one up either. I guess I don't even know what they do exactly, but they use the leaf, the maple leaf, which is on the flag, on the Canadian flag, and they made it appear that was cut out of the banner swoop on the top. They probably could have done a little bit better job of that. I mean, you see how it looks like the leaf is on a plane that's facing you, perpendicular. And if you look at the blue ribbon shape, it looks like it's skewed towards a perspective off into the distance. You could have used Photoshop, or they could have used Photoshop to do a skew, some kind of transform skew where it looks more like it's in perspective to the plane of the ribbon. That's what I would have done. Super clean text and very tight, but very nicely kerned, just perfect. Two colors again. So you're seeing a theme here, a lot of two colors. Capitol Records, classic record company. They've been around a long time. this logo is simple, but it looks old. It's a nod to like an old style. For example, the swirling script font in capital, and then the very modern sans serif style in records, which is just kerned very, very, very wide, and in contrast to the patent text, which is yet another font that's kerned very, very tight. In the 50s especially, probably even before that, there was a style where more was more, very busy, and also just they would use like as many fonts as you could in one design. Like every text object was like a different font. Um, so this is like a nod to that. I mean, it reminds one who understands the history of something that's continuous and traditional, older. Something that continues on. Simple capital um, graphic element, that they've integrated nicely on top of the word capital. They kind of tucked it in there and then used those 4 stars to kind of create a unity between that graphic and the main headline text. One color. Super simple, but awesome. This one, Chase Investment Bank. Probably picked a really cool font and probably also did some things to it, Illustrator, Photoshop. How the C and the E and the S, for example, have the how it's cut off on a diagonal like that, a 45 diagonal, and a negative 45. I'm not sure if the font was like that or not. If it wasn't, they probably did that, And then that's repeated in the 4 shapes on the right. So the graphic image, i.e. the abstract shapes, look exactly like the letter forms, except the color is different, obviously, and they're thicker, but 2 colors. Cisco. Two colors. Very simple. Again, all caps. Perfectly kerned. Cleansing Professional Cleaning Solutions. Now this one kind of looks different than a lot that we've seen previously. It's still very simple, but it was a great idea. They illustrated the product, a simplified version of it, but they made that the C. So the C swoops around into the shape of the cleaner. Then they repeated green on the bottom of the cleaner into the Z, and then the tagline. And it's smart that they repeated the green in the Z, because they're taking liberty with the word here. It's not cleansing with a S, it's cleansing with a Z. So it's just a way to gain interest and draw you in, and make sure it's not a mistake. Or if you're going to Google it or look for them or whatnot, it's just a way for the viewer to remember. Oh, that's right there with a Z, cleansing. Or maybe they'll just remember the name because of that. They'll forget the name and then they'll go something about a Z. Oh yeah, cleansing. Clip hair. This actually, I'm not sure if this was a real company. This might have been a recreated logo or just something that was done. You can kind of tell, like the trademark font. Usually, you almost never see a registered trademark in that stencil font. Never. It's always in the most plain. I'm not sure if there's federal rules for a trademark symbol, but it almost looks like it, because every time I've ever seen a trademark symbol, it's always been like Arial or Arial Narrow, or the simplest, Times New Roman or something. It's It's usually de-emphasized. It's not part of the design. It's just put on there because it has to be. You know what I mean? And the text "Your Beauty, Your Style," uh, it looks funny. It's not kerned well enough. There's problems with the kerning. It's affecting readability, flow. Like there's way too much space between the Y and the comma, for example. And I just don't like that font as a tagline font. It's too important. It's too stylized. You know, the style of this logo. The best part of the logo is the three little swoop shapes. That's awesome. I mean, they nailed that perfectly, and it's good that they repeated those colors in the "Your Beauty, Your Style." Um, but so those are the problems I have with this one. But the idea of that simple little graphic centered to the header like that, which is the name of the company, that's very common. You'll see that a lot. And also the kerning space between the letters of clip hair is not good. You can see how it just visually it looks like there's a lot of space on either side of the H, and between the L and the P that looks really tight. It's just this could be, kerning space between letters. I've already demonstrated how to do that. Call me or text me if you're having trouble with that. It's never been more crucial with logos and headlines. Okay, you got to nail that spacing, and you got to use your eyes. It's a visual thing. They need to look balanced. The space needs to look balanced in between all the letters. Okay. Cetera. Did I look up this company? I think I forgot to. So I don't even know what they do. Sorry about the quality of this one. It's a little chunky. Again, it's super simple. All caps. No, I'm sorry, not all caps. It's small case, but everything. It's all small case. So it's, I guess, small caps, which is cool. So it's got the impression that they're all caps. I mean, it's all the same height, from the bottom of the letter form to the top. Probably tweaked, you know, Photoshop or Illustrator, but who knows? It could just be kind of a cool font. But I would suspect it's tweaked a little. Um, I love those two swoop shapes and how the color blue is repeated in the C, and also the shape of the C is repeated in the swoop shapes. Super, super simple. Oh, I know what these guys are. They're cloud storage solutions. So obviously they've evoked a cloud. Very, very smart. Three colors. Super simple. Synergy. They're actually business banking. Oh no, business branding. Um, Odd. I don't know if that rocket shape really screams branding. It looks like an energy company, uh, especially the way the word synergy is kind of tilted like that, and with the rocket shape and the gradient, which evokes like something's burning bright on the inside like rocket fuel. It's just you know it's like I'm not sure if that's what you want to or what you should convey in a logo of a company that specializes in company branding, because you want to make it seem like you can do anything for anybody depending on what the company is. I mean, do they just do energy branding? I'm not sure, but again, one color, super super simple. And this is an idea where you sort of make the letter forms appear to be cut out of one simple shape.